Laughlin City Schools down in Hamilton County was reported to have scrubbing through an investigation of ODE.
Yes.
But they're not on your list. They're not on there. The maps are not on your list. Is there a reason why you didn't bother to look at Laughlin?
Yes, ODE has already completed that investigation. They've recalculated the report card, and it would be a waste of money to redo the work.
Auditor, on Cleveland, are the Cleveland Public Schools violating state law by not going to court to get truancy determinations?
They are non-compliant with state law, and the reason I'm hesitating on characterizing that is not every wrongdoing is a crime. Not every non-compliance issue at the law is necessarily wrongdoing. However, I would say that the Cleveland Public Schools are not compliant in their disenrollment of kids for reason of truancy / non-attendance if they do not have a court order demonstrating, finding that that child has been adjudicated as a truant.
Just one follow-up on that. Is Cleveland required under state law or Department of Education policy to keep the records for the students that you're not finding?
Yes.
Is it Department of Education or is it state law?
It's a state statute.
Next.
Dave, did you, as part of your looking into the Department of Education, get an indication as to whether or not they knew what was going on at the local levels with this policy?
Well, obviously they did the Laughlin investigation, so they had an idea. The issue had also been raised in 2004 through Columbus Public Schools, although that report, if you read it, didn't do anything to look at individual files. It wasn't an audit, and all it did was look and see whether the proper procedures and policies were in place, not whether they were followed. And one of the key things in an audit or any system of accountability is to be able to determine that your internal controls are not only in place, but they're actually followed. And we frequently find in financial audits that all the right policies are in place, the computer's set up properly, but then the personnel may not execute on the controls.
Auditor, have you found any school district that is flat out padding the stats?
Again, it's probably beyond the scope of an audit to make a determination that somebody's padding the stats. What we have found is that the withdrawals and the subsequent improvement to the assessment population are being done inappropriately in at least 5 districts.
Got it right now, and then we'll get you.
Two-part question. First part is 10,000 is the big number for Columbus City Schools. Wondering if you could put that in context in terms of its pervasiveness. And part 2 is when you say scrubbing, and I got the definition, but when you say scrubbing, does this mean that the data was just certainly manipulated? For whatever reason, it was manipulated.
Yes, it appears to be a reasonable conclusion that the data was manipulated.
Okay.
In Columbus Public Schools. As far as drawing a context, I want to caution everyone, you've all got calculators, you can all go figure out percentages and stuff. Please remember that with the 100 schools, they were selected on the basis of a metric that would tend to indicate they might have an issue. So to expand that or extend that, extrapolate that to the entire population of schools is unfair. I think maybe an instructive thing to look at is the 60-day schools, and out of those schools, we didn't have any of them that we found these problems that we found in the other 5 districts. My sense is that most schools are not doing this. My sense is also that as we continue this work, we are going to find other schools.
Not from a standpoint of motive or some kind of psychological state, but from the standpoint of causation and empirical data or whatever, is improved test scores the single greatest obvious outcome of having scrubbed or having broken student enrollment?
if you have children that are not faring well, they're in the bottom quartile or bottom 10% of all students, and you're able to remove a portion of those students, mathematically, your scores have to go up.
So you looked at about 100 buildings now. What can you tell Ohioans about what else you're looking at? I mean, will all buildings in the entire state be looked at, or just some, or what happens now?
No, based on the results from the 60-day study, it's clear that there are going to be buildings that we don't need to look at out of that 3,600 or so. The next step, and we've been doing this on a parallel track, we've been working with some statisticians at the Ohio State University. You'd never know I was an alum by the way I stumbled over that. They are taking a look at several metrics over from 1998 to 2011 out of the ODE database, including academic performance and attendance. What we're looking for is statistically significant anomalies, because we know when certain legal requirements came in. That work, when it's completed, I'm hoping fairly soon. Mark, have they given us an idea when we might get a deliverable on that?
Monday.
Monday? That's great. We will use that information then to basically divide out the schools that we think we need to look at versus those that we're confident that we don't. Once we know that, we're going to look at the list of which school districts have levies on, and we're going to go to those buildings first. We're going to do as many of those as we possibly humanly can in order to report by October 23rd. Mr. Cohen, was that?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question? All right.
Did you find that the students who were being withdrawn were those who were in grades that take the achievement test, or were there other students outside of those tested grades who would not have affected report card results?
Mark, do we have stratification by grade in our work papers?
It would be by building within our work papers. So you have most middle schools are 6 through 8, most elementaries are K through 5, or high schools.
Our starting point was those that were pushed to the state. So it would be for those students that took the test that we were looking at.
Of course, definition.
So did you not look at other grades, other untested grades then to see if you could withdraw?
No, the way we selected the schools was to go for that, and that list was the students we looked at.
Does the Ohio State model look at roll-ups? And if that is the case, didn't your look at the first 100 show that roll-ups aren't necessarily connected to?
Well, I haven't received it yet, so I'm not sure what it includes and what it doesn't. We saw a draft proposal, gave them some feedback, and we're supposed to get our return on Monday. However, they are looking more at the difference. They're looking for differences in attendance and math scores particularly. Although attendance can be modified from year to year by intervention, literature seems to indicate that math scores don't change easily or quickly. So I'm not a statistician, but the gravamen, the touchstone of their work is to look at this over a period of more than a decade and look for a change that happens suddenly or changes that go contra each other.
Do you anticipate at this point, based on what you know now, that there will be criminal referrals in any district?
There's always been the possibility of criminal referrals. Ohio has a tampering with records statute, and it's a serious matter. That said, it does have a mens rea, or an intent element to it. So the kind of work that we've done here is necessary for criminal prosecution, to support a criminal prosecution, but it's not sufficient. You would need some additional evidence that would support the intent, so that there weren't many possible reasons to have done this, but only one, and that was to actually create the outcome.
Auditor, just given what you've seen here, do you anticipate that this would be like an annual thing? You guys will do something on this scope?
Oh goodness, no. I anticipate that there will be changes in the system that will make it more robust and make it unnecessary for us to ever have to do this again.
Dave, you said that Toledo, if I understand correctly, was pretty much on this list because they told you that they had a problem. Were you able to independently verify anything that they said? And absent that, would they even be on this list today, based on how far you've gotten, if not for that candor?
Well, they would still be as part of this report. They're undetermined, I believe, if you look at the tables, but we are still looking at those plans.
You still would have met criteria for rolling up that percentage. You would have been within 100 no matter what.
Right, but we still are going to look at the files. We've had other issues in Toledo in getting to look at the papers, but we will dive down and verify.